Good to be here this morning. And of course, I'm here to talk to you about what NICE has done and is doing in relation to support for dementia. But like everybody else, I have a personal hat to wear in relation to dementia as well. I think most people have some personal experience, don't they? Hence the picture on the right. The woman on the right is my mother in the 1950s, and the woman in the scary hat is a judge. It was a very 1950s competition called Bride of the Year. It was really about cooking, as far as I can tell. But my mother was a great cook, and it was when she could no longer follow a recipe or remember how to bake scones that she'd baked for years that I realised things were no longer as they once had been. It was very much a red flag for me. Sadly, she doesn't cook at all anymore, and it took us a long time to get a diagnosis, and it's proved impossible for her to accept the diagnosis. But I just, it's a story that I'm living, as are lots of you in the audience. The prevalence of dementia, of course, goes up with age, and I just want to show this because back in the 1990s, I was working in public health, and we had lots of new treatments for cardiovascular disease that were clearly going to extend life, and that was all great, and that was all fantastic, and the increase in dementia as a consequence was predictable. It feels though since then we have been playing catch-up in thinking about how do we actually manage the increase in dementia that we've seen as a consequence of living longer. And I like to think that NICE has helped with some of that work around what do we do, what are the best management strategies, and also work around prevention. NICE's role, as you probably know, is very much about drawing on published research evidence. That's core to everything we do, and we look based on that evidence at what works and what's good value for money for the health and care system. We produce guidance recommendations based on that evidence, and then we distill some of that into core standards which help prioritise what needs to be improved and provides a system for measurement. And all of that's obviously all about improving outcomes for people and their families. Some of you might have been involved in NICE's approach to developing guidance, because we do aim to involve as many people as possible through our consultation process. And I'll talk shortly about the new quality standards we're developing, because getting views from patients, patient organisations, as well as professionals is really, really important. We use the evidence, we have an independent committee, but consultation is key to testing that and making sure we've got it right. There are quite a number of pieces of work that NICE has done that relate to dementia. There's a clinical guideline that's just been out for consultation, and I'll talk about that in a moment. There's a guideline on prevention of disability, dementia and frailty. And of course, we also look at new drugs as they come through. And we've recommended some of those. And unfortunately, there isn't a good pipeline of new alternative drugs for dementia coming through. It doesn't look as though there's an easy answer to this on the horizon. So although the pharmaceutical companies continue to look, it's not an area where we know that there's going to be an answer in terms of medication. We also provide evidence-based advice that isn't full-blown guidance recommendations, so that overall there's a lot of things that we do. And to help people find their way through that, there are things on the NICE website called pathways. So if you are interested in taking a look, the easiest thing to do is to go into Google and put NICE dementia pathway, and that will take you to it. Good old Google. If you look at what we said around preventing dementia, there are a number of things that seem to help. Things like smoking less, things like taking more physical activity, the sorts of things that prevent vascular disease, help prevent vascular dementia. there, again, was no magic bullet, but all the things that we know are good for us are good for preventing dementia as well. There was some evidence around cognitive stimulation helping, but it doesn't seem to have a global effect. So if you practice doing Sudoku, you'll be good at doing Sudoku as you grow older, but not necessarily at doing anything else. So the new dementia guideline has been out for consultation. Some of you might have seen it. We had a lot of comments back, and that's always good to see. The final guideline is due to be published in June. It is more focused than the earlier guidelines that we had. Focused, shorter. And I think that's a good thing. When there's a really long document, it can be hard for people to navigate around it and put it into practice. And putting it into practice is, of course, what we want. There's no point NICE issuing a great document if it doesn't do anything. So we want to all get behind this when it comes out. It recommends prescription of anti-dementia drugs in primary care, which we didn't before. And it does have some other changes in there, and some of the issues that came out of consultation I've highlighted on here, because there were some things that clearly didn't seem right, and we will be taking notice of and sorting out in the final product. So, for instance, place of diagnosis, it seemed to read as though we were saying everybody should have a diagnosis in hospital, which we aren't saying. That's not what the guideline says, but it wasn't clear. So things like that, if you were concerned and you've given us feedback, we will sort that out. But it was good to see that local government responded very positively to the consultation, and they generally thought it was a good guideline. We need their input in terms of putting it into practice. So as I mentioned before, quality standards follow on from guidance, and what they represent are sentinel markers, some people describe them as, a small set of measurable statements where we know improvements needed. And at the moment, we have 20 statements around improvement in dementia care. That covers healthcare and it covers social care. Those need to be updated now on the back of that new guideline. It will draw on those new recommendations that we've made in the guideline. So I can't stand here today, I'm afraid, and announce what the new standards say, but I can ask you to go away and look at what we've said in the guideline and think about your experiences of what the system is providing at the moment. It's really important that the quality standards focus on improvement. So where are things not working and need to be improved? That's going to be key, and we have a listening exercise to take that feedback. So just to show you what we have at the moment, the guideline, the standard on living well with dementia has 10 statements. And it would be really helpful if you could check those and think, is that still right, or are there more important areas where we should now focus? And to illustrate the sorts of things they cover, Statement 1 said, people worried about possible dementia can discuss their concerns and the options of seeking a diagnosis with someone with knowledge and expertise. Is that still an issue, or have we moved far enough along that we don't need to make that an area for improvement? It's clearly improved a lot based on what Jeremy said, but is it still an important area for a quality statement? Quality statement 4, people with dementia are unable to take part in leisure activities during their day based on individual interest and choice. And the individual interest and choice is a really important part of this statement. And it always makes me smile because I've got a picture on here of singing, and I absolutely know that it would not be my mother's individual choice to take part in singing. I think she'd probably rather do anything other than sing. But an important an important statement for a lot of people. And again, is that still an important area for a quality standard from NICE? Each standard has measures attached. I'm not going to go through the detail, but these are the sorts of things that you might do to measure that statement I just talked about. And the measurement is important. There's an old adage, you can't manage it if you don't measure it. And if we don't know what's going on, it's hard to make things improve. And I spend a lot of time trying to encourage people to do more measurement, to think about why that's important, why it's important for providers, why it's important for commissioners, and of course both of those are important for patients and their families too, to have some information about where things are good and where they're less good. And to make things better, we need a framework for quality improvement, and something NICE and CQC and other partners have been doing is working on a quality framework that relates not just to health, but relates to care as well. And that quality framework focuses on what quality looks like and references NICE's quality standards. So getting a new set of quality standards that we all think cover the main areas for improvement will be really important. There is also on the NICE website information about progress towards NICE's recommendations, be they from a guideline or from a quality standard. We sift as much information as we can to find out if our recommendations are being followed. And there is some information that relates to dementia. I've got a couple of slides which are getting more recent as you go down. So this is about a case-finding question for dementia in A&E, which is showing improvements towards the bottom, as is this one, assessment by a specialist liaison service in an acute trust. Again, it's improving. There are other data on the website too, but in general, it's all coming from the NHS sector, and it would be good to do more to see how things are improving across the board. So I think I'm almost out of time. I will just quickly cover my final two slides. This one is to say that our guidance is sometimes seen as a bit technical. And to try and address that, we are publishing quick guides that are much more accessible in terms of our recommendations. And this clearly isn't about dementia, but there will be one about dementia when we've published the guideline later this year. So do look out for that. And just brief summary then, there are several causes of dementia. There need to be several approaches to prevention, and NICE has looked at some of the factors that might help. We've got a number of guidelines that cover dementia. The new one will be published in June, so do look out for that. Then we'll update the quality standards. We really need to use those to drive change, so your thoughts on where things should improve are really key. You can find it all on the NICE website under Pathways, and as I said before, please do send us your thoughts in the consultation. Thank you.